Hi everyone, it's Crystal again with another scrapbook layout for you today. And today I'm going to be doing a 12 by 12 layout of my 40th birthday. And so I had this idea that I was going to wanting to stamp in the background a bunch of 40s, as well as have a big um, 40 for the title. So here I am, I'm just kind of testing it out on this yellow paper that I found that I thought would go well with this photo. And this is a 5 by 7 photo that I had developed at CVS. So like I said, I'm testing out some different numbers that I had and just to see if what I was envisioning would come out the way I wanted to. And while I liked the 4 and the 0 here, I just felt it wasn't big enough. Also, seeing like what colors would work. At first, at this point, I was thinking the color scheme was going to be yellow, red, and blue. So I'm just testing out the different ink colors too. And I was not liking so much of how the 40 was coming across. And so, yeah. So I'm just kind of testing placements, seeing how the stamping would go behind. And I knew I was doing it inside on this yellow paper here where I knew I'd be covering it up with the photo if I didn't like it. So I also pulled out some other stamps that I had with numbers on them as well to see how those would look just because the other 40 that I stamped, they do have those little spots that are open because it's meant for dates actually. So I had that one. Still, I was just feeling it was way too small. The font size was way too small. So I'm just going to move on from that and go on to the next part that I had planned, which was die cutting a big 40. So I'm looking through my red papers here that I have to see which one would go well as to create that number 40 with my Cricut Joy there. So I'm just going through my red papers trying to find which one will work best. I do end up finding here in a moment, you'll see one that says happy on it, and then another one, and the other one there. And I am going to end up using the one that says happy all over the place. So here I'm trimming it down just so I can cut out the 40 with my Cricut Joy. And I just used a basic font within the Cricut design to create the 40. And since I just have the Cricut Joy, it's smaller, I did have to do them in two separate parts, which is fine. I wanted when I purchased the Cricut Joy, I wanted that one just because it was smaller and not taking up as much room in my crafting area since it's not very large area that I have. So as you can see, I was kind of placing that 4 behind my photo. So when I was envisioning this, I did want to have the 40 tucked behind the photo here, and I like it. However, still, again, I was still trying to figure out how I could get the stamps of 40 as the background as well. So I end up going onto Amazon and purchasing a stamp, which you'll see in a little bit. But first, I did decide I wanted to do some doodling here. So just add some doodling edge to the number of the number 40. And just going to quickly outline each of the 4 and the 0. And the reason why I was still doing it behind the photo, because I wasn't 100% sure at this point if I was still going to keep the 40 tucked behind the photo. So that's why you see me tracing around the whole entire number everywhere. So yeah, so like I said, I did go on to Amazon, still looking to see if I could try to make these numbers work, just not. Anyways, so I did go on to Amazon and I did end up purchasing a Tim Holtz 40 here, as you can see. Um, and so at first I had pulled also out this kind of Studio Calico beige paper that had some uh, zigzags all over it. But however, I was going to test it out first before I had to ruin that paper, testing out the stamping. I was going to test it out first, see the idea and concept that I have in mind would work on just a regular white piece of paper. So I really liked how this 40 was. I liked the big stamp of it. I thought about maybe cutting them out and then gluing them down all over the paper. And then I was like, no. And so then you see me stamping here because really what I really was envisioning was just a bunch of 40s stamped all over the page in the back, kind of as the background. So here I am just testing it out, and I ended up deciding to go with the colors red, yellow, and orange. And you can see there, I liked how it was. I was just kind of testing to see how it would look behind the photo, and I enjoyed it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to end up going around and just stamping 40 all on the back on this paper here. And I'm going to be going between the different colors of the red and the orange and the yellow. And I didn't want them all to be in the same direction, so you're going to see I'm going to change the direction of the 40 just to kind of create this pattern on top of that paper there. So you're going to see I'm going to stamp the 40s all over, as well as them having going off the page. Here I'm just kind of using some cardstock to stamp it off the page so I don't ruin my stamp on my desk. And then I didn't always clean the stamp in between. I didn't care if it had a little bit, if the orange or the yellow kind of bled and made like a darker orange, as you'll kind of see. Didn't matter. I just wanted to go from those shades of yellow to red. Um, yeah. So I jumped ahead here, as you can see. I stamped what I kind of wanted, and now I'm just kind of messing around with the photo here to see how it'll work, as well as that big 40, which is going to end up becoming my title later on. So I'm just kind of messing with placement to see how things are going. Do I need to be stamping some more? Because as you can see, I kind of did a diagonal movement with the stamped 40s. And I decided that I kind of like the 40 above because I did want to cover up in that photo there on the right hand side of that photo. There's our living room area, and I just kind of want to cover up some of the stuff that was there because I didn't like it. So I decided that I still need to add, it'd be best just to go cover the whole entire page with the number 40. So I'm just going to continue doing that here before I just move on to the rest of this layout. And so briefly I can describe, so I am, like I said, I'm doing this as a 12 by 12 layout. I realized that this was my 40th birthday, and I only really had like one or two photos from this birthday, and they weren't very cohesive. We did have a party, and I had photos from somewhere. Um, I can't find them right now. I think a friend took a lot of them, and so they were going to give me access to them, but they have a lot going on in their life right now, so I just don't really have access to photos from my 40th birthday, which is fine. It doesn't matter to me. I decided just to use this one of my husband putting me in these silly items of being old um, for my 40th birthday, and I felt like that would just work. There's not going to be much journaling to this layout since it is my 40th birthday. Kind of, I guess, self-explanatory. Um, so yeah, so that's why I ended up just doing a 12 by 12 layout for this one since I just had one photo. And it is a special day, right? It's my 40th birthday. So I didn't feel like I wanted to cluster it, or not cluster it, but I just wanted to have one big photo highlighting that day. So now I still wanted to use this yellow paper, and so what I'm going to do is I am going to trim it down and end up using it as a mat for that photo, just to kind of balance and bring in some more of that yellow that I wanted to use for this layout. So I'm just kind of trimming down to be the right size that I want it and going over those bunch of 40 stamps. So since they're going to be hidden behind the photo, it works. I don't care if they're not, that was used. And yeah, you can kind of see I did some tracing of a 40, say maybe that would work. Yeah, anyways. So yeah, like I said, I'm just going to use it as a mat for this, and then I'm just going to outline that mat too as well. And then So now I'm just going to kind of figure out where I want to place it. And again, like I said, I wanted to use that big 40 as part of my title and to cover part of the photo there since I did not care for what was in the photo. Um, I think I was trying to cover like a dead plant or like a plant that wasn't looking too good and our little bar and just um, items in our house that just didn't need to be in the photo that kind of took away from the photo. So now I felt like I needed to have that 40 die cut was not popping off the page well enough. So I did want to use another mat of paper to go behind it. So I looked through my orange papers and I found this one here. And I know it has like a stain down the bottom. My papers kind of got damaged one time when years ago when my condo kind of got flooded out. But I still kept them even though they had still water stains. I figured I could still use them. Um, yeah. So anyways, so I'm just going to cut it down to work for what I need. And here I go, just moving those off and placing this strip of orange paper as the base there. And going to trim it down. I do a horrible job of trimming this off, so I'm going to reposition it in a moment and trim it better. But I did like this anchor of this orange paper, just kind of anchoring the title here of 40 as well as anchoring the photo onto the page. So here you saw it's repositioned. Now I'm just trimming it down better because it was just horrible up. Anyways, now I'm going to add just a brief outline to that orange paper again to just keep with the continuity of the other outlines that I've done onto the other papers. And just again position it to match up to where I want it. And I'm going to shift it again a little bit higher because I wanted to make sure that I was getting the 40 in there and not having the paper hang too far off or the photo hang too far off. So just kind of fussing around with placement until I have it where I want it. So I'm just kind of going through my little scrap pile there and I pulled out that little orange paper with the flowers on it to maybe using it there on the other side to kind of just anchor going across the photo and the title going across the whole page. Again, outlining it, and then I'm going to tuck it there behind the photo. And then I'm just kind of going through and looking to see if there's anything else that I could add right now for more layering. Gonna quickly start going through my embellishments as well to see what embellishments I could possibly use to add to this layout. I like that tag, trying to figure out maybe I could use that. Again, I'm looking for things that have along the same color line that I've used here in the background. So I'm going to tuck that tag there underneath the 40, and it actually works out well. I can't remember at this point if I knew what I wanted the full title to be or not, but it's going to actually kind of go into play for the title later on the tag. So here's some of the embellishments I pulled out. I pulled out those frames. I pulled out some chipboard. I pulled out the uh, vellum camera, some washi tape as well, and some labels and those little puffy heart stickers. Okay, so I'm just going to start arranging my embellishments here. I glued down that little tag. Gonna glue down, make a little cluster up there where that vellum camera's at, and just kind of making a little cluster here. Gonna do some doodles as well to keep with the rest of the layout. And that little tag there, or that little label one there, I'm gonna date stamp it with the date of my birthday. And just kind of doing triple stamp there, gluing down that vellum um, camera. And I always kind of put the glue in the darker spots so that it just doesn't show up as much when you glue it down. Again, I'm going to try to figure out where I can place some more labels and tuck in some more clusters here of embellishments. So just trying to see where maybe those labels would work. Some of these, could I possibly use some of the frames here? But it's not quite working out. Going through, I found this little label here, cutting it off, just going to tuck it up there at the top with that other cluster. There's really no rhyme or reason. I was just also trying to use up some of my embellishments and just making little clusters here and adding some dimensions and layers. Gonna add some of these chipboards here that I recently purchased from Studio Calico, I believe. I don't know what it is, but I feel like years ago when I used to be buying chipboards, they were much thicker, and now they're not as thick. Anyways, so I chose this one that says this next chapter, the next chapter, which I thought was appropriate for, 40th birthday. So I just placed that there, the bottom left of the photo. Gonna look to see about maybe doing those um, dots, enamel dots, looking to see if they would work. But then I remembered um, I have those puffy hearts, which I'll use in a moment. So now I'm just going to continue on with the title, and I'm using these Jelly Bean Soup little alpha letters here, and just kind of poking through to get some of the little stuff in between the letters. So, and just using that tool there to kind of arrange them on there. Now, because they're so tiny, it is, I didn't care that they weren't like perfectly straight, but at least wanted them in a certain, not to be completely crooked and everything. So the title I decided to go with was 40 Never Looked So Young. Um, I just thought it was it kind of popped to me as I was making this layout. It was never really planned, just because of the photo that I took there of me looking like an looking old, I guess. So just speeding up here to glue it down, doing the letters, and then I'm also going to pull out some yellow thickers here that I have. Just making sure I had all the letters to spell out young. Gonna lay them down, and then I also will rearrange it here because I wanted to try to keep the word young onto that label. So I really liked how that, when I put that label there, it kind of worked out for the title on this layout. Just adjusting there, the word young. And like I said earlier, I'm not going to add much journaling to this layout just because it's self-explanatory. But yeah, so I'm just going to be adding the title, and I think that's pretty much it to this layout. So, oh, those puffy little hearts. Um, yeah, and that'll be pretty much this layout. So, I thanks for watching. I really did enjoy how this layout came out with those stamps of 40s, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks again for watching.